What are the 3 words Sonic the Hedgehog fears most? Super Mario World. Only 2 months after the initial release of Sonic's first adventure, Mario hit the Western market with one hell of a game. It was bigger, more ambitious and creative than any platformer the world had ever seen. Sega needed something to rival that. Something new, something exciting, something that would make every gamer out there go, yeah, Mario's great, but look at that new Sonic game. And they came up with a two-tailed fox and called it a day. What is good, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Backlog project, where we play through a gigantic list of games to find out which of them is worth putting onto your backlog. Got a game you'd like to see on the show? Check the description of the video to take part in our weekly poll where you get to decide the next game I'll review. While I did enjoy my time with the first Sonic the Hedgehog game a few months back, there certainly were a few things that needed improvement. Mainly the level design that often punished you for going fast and the horrendous special stages. Many of you have told me that the second game improves on quite a few flaws of its predecessor, so let's see if Sega can deliver what might well turn out to be one of the best 2D platformers and make Sonic the Hedgehog 2 worth putting onto your backlog. The Origins version has, just like with Sonic 1, a little cutscene that introduces Tails, a two-tailed fox that gets bullied by his brethren and saved by Sonic, which he promptly follows on his way to defeat Dr. Eggman, who is trying to robotize the whole world again. It's a neat way to introduce the game's most prominent feature, the inclusion of Tails, and with it a 2-player mode, and also establishes the game's admittedly uninventive plot. The game again opens with Green Hill Zone and... wait, it's called Emerald Hill now? Wow, real creative, Sega. The game actually looks a lot like its predecessor. In fact, if you're not familiar with the games, you'd be hard-pressed to tell them apart by just looking at them. That doesn't mean it looks bad though. The levels and characters still ooze personality and look very clean for a game that is over 30 years old. Some minor tweaks were made as well, like the inclusion of multiple layers and reflections in the background, making the stages feel more alive and vibrant. Bassist Nakamura Masato worked his magic again and made the score of this game into a cacophony of memorable bass lines and groovy synth tracks that will make you remember playing the levels just by listening to the music. This time there are more stages, which also means more music to enjoy. There's also more variety with not only high adrenaline music like Chemical Plant Zone, but also more laid back, atmospheric tracks like Hilltop or Sky Chase Zone. And thank God they got rid of the terrible stage music from Sonic 1 and included something much more... something. I don't even know how to describe this weirdly haunting racing game music, and while it's definitely better than what the first game had, it still makes me feel uncomfortable for some reason, like I'm getting chased by a clown with an extremely cute but sharp knife or something. Don't ask me why this is so specific, but it scares me. Gotta go fast, again, but still not really. Very reminiscent of Sonic 1, this game opens with what I consider to be prime Sonic level design. Emerald Hill is fast, open, and layered with multiple paths to ensure you can play the level over and over to find the best and fastest way to clear it without it feeling stale or boring. Then comes Chemical Plant Zone, which is probably the best zone Sega has created up to this point. Not only is the music absolutely bonkers, the level is creative with pipes you can run on, elevators and transporters all over the place and numerous shortcuts, and right then is when the game kind of falls apart. Every level after the first 2 suffers from the same problems Sonic 1 had, just not as badly. You start to pick up some speed only to be put to a halt by some obstacle, be it a wall, a sudden drop-off, spikes, or even enemies you run into, only to lose your precious rings and lives to something you couldn't have known was there before you've fallen for it once. That's not to say that Sonic 2 isn't an enjoyable experience to play. Every zone, even the slower ones, has interesting mechanics, great music, and unique settings that make playing through and exploring them a lot of fun. Hilltop seesaws might slow the game down significantly, but they're also a pretty unique way of traversal, making the level very memorable. The game is full with gimmicks like that, and even has a whole zone played on board a carrier plane. The developers went all out on creativity with this one, and it shows. Awesome! I can't think of any way this game could not be fun with so much creativity and solid gameplay behind it. What's that? Oh crap. Yep, they're back. Water levels, and this time it's not just one. About half of the game's 10 stages have an underwater section to them, with some of them even being mostly underwater, and it still sucks. The gameplay gets slowed down way too much. The enemies underwater are super annoying, and you drowning is still not a fun mechanic. At least it's easier to get air in this game, so you won't drown nearly as much. Still, underwater levels are the crux of Sonic games, and I will celebrate the day they finally get rid of them. I said Tails was the biggest new feature in this game, right? So what does he do? Nothing actually. He just runs after Sonic, copying his movements. In theory, he could help you out by hitting enemies or activating mechanics, but he usually just does this. There is one use for Tails: flying. Continuously pressing the jump button while standing still will make Tails pick Sonic up and enable them to fly for a short period of time. Used well, this technique allows for some crazy shortcuts, but realistically you won't get much use out of this feature without knowing the levels inside and out. Bosses are pretty much the same as they were in Sonic 1. Eggman fights you from his weird vehicle with some gimmick attached that usually fits the theme of the zone you fight him in. For 2D platformer standards, the fights are creative and fun, as well as varied enough to feel not only different to themselves, but also to the ones in the first game. The only outlier here is the last boss that, while creative, is also the hardest boss in the game by not only mechanics, but also the fact that you have to fight it with no rings, which means you'll die if you mess up just once. Speaking of rings, the system works exactly like it did before. You collect rings across the stage that will give you an extra life if you collect 100. Getting hit by an enemy makes you lose all your rings, with some of them being recollectible for a few seconds after getting hit. If you get hit while you have 0 rings, you die. The difference this time is how the rings are used outside of the health system. If you have at least 50 rings when activating a save point, a little shiny circle will open above it that you can jump into to get into Sonic 2's version of special stages. And thank God they got rid of the horrible ones from the first game. Instead of falling through the fever dreams of a drug addict, special stages in Sonic 2 have you run through a linear semi-3D pipe that has rings and traps scattered across. Your goal here is to collect a certain number of rings before reaching the end, where you will collect one of the Chaos Emeralds if you meet the ring requirement. These stages are actually kind of fun to play and get pretty challenging towards the end, giving you a completion process that is not only enjoyable, but also gives you a greatly different experience than just playing through the game normally. The only problem here is Tails. He does the same thing as in the normal stages: copy Sonic's movement 1-to-1 with a slight delay. He also does something new: eat up the rings you need. This is a good thing though, because that means he often picks up some you missed while following you, and his rings count towards the total you need. Only that his delayed movement makes it damn hard to plan a path that will see you both safely through the level, and more often than not, Tails will run straight into any trap you just barely dodged and lose all those precious rings, making you fail the level. Once you collect all the Chaos Emeralds, you unlock Super Sonic! That sounds awesome, right? So what is it? Pressing the jump button mid-air while having 50 rings or more will transform Sonic into his yellow super form that makes him invulnerable and crazy fast, and drains your ring count every second. If you drop to 0 rings in super form, you'll revert to normal Sonic, so your goal here is to just always be collecting rings while rushing through the levels. That's pretty easy though, since you can't lose rings to damage, and the only ways to die are by falling off the level or getting squashed. Super Sonic feels a bit like a cheat, with it being extremely overpowered and basically rendering any challenge the game provides null. So my recommendation here is to play through the game once without getting the emeralds and then collecting them on a second run when you've actually beaten all the levels properly. Before we get into my verdict on Sonic the Hedgehog 2, if you enjoyed the review so far, it'd be amazing if you could give the video that thumbs up YouTubers love so much. It really helps in spreading this video further, so thank you. If you look at Sonic 1 as a beta version, Sonic 2 is the finished product. It's faster, more creative, and just overall more fun than its predecessor. But it still shares some of the same issues, like cheap trap and enemy placement and anti-fun underwater sections, and even introduces a new problem in the form of the world's most incompetent AI, called Tails. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a great time completing this game, but I'd also be lying if I told you that it wasn't downright frustrating at times. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a game you should definitely play if you're a Sonic and or platformer fan, or just interested in gaming history in general. But maybe take a stress ball in the form of a yellow fox with you if you're trying to go for completion in the special stages. What's your favorite Sonic game? Maybe it's actually Sonic 2 and you're already furiously writing an essay in the comments section. I'm looking forward to reading that. By the way, I'm also live on YouTube every Monday and Friday with some awesome games, so come by sometime to chat and have some fun. The next stream is always scheduled on the channel page, so you can't miss it. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always keep that backlog rolling.